projects before pre-ordering a Sentry.
The bracket over here. So on the Dr. Saber Sentry.
So this is my Dr. Saber PC. I've already sort of gotten ahead.
The Dr. Saber Sentry 2.0.
The cake is a lie. Oh yes, it is. However, it's not a lie to everyone. Perhaps only to me, but not to you. You see, 9 years ago, Linus shared this video. It's about one of the most interesting computer cases I've ever seen. Dr. Saber's Sentry. It's small, charming, and smart, but expensive. The case was so successful they went out and made a second version, the Sentry 2.0. Its crowdfunding started 6 years ago, and according to Indiegogo, it hit its goal within 8 days and 9 hours. It was simply amazing, and I wanted one. Naturally, I was born rich with a giant silver spoon in my mouth.
Signal lights are broken again.
So I bought it along with all the individual parts I needed. The end. Just kidding. You didn't believe that, did you? I wouldn't be whining about something being expensive if I were rich, because if I were, I would just simply buy it. But don't get me wrong, rich people do whine a lot. Just not about expensive things, but also sometimes about expensive things. Anyway, back to my problem. I could not afford this enclosure as well as all the new parts I needed to build in it. My younger, genius self figured that surely, in the future, GPU prices as well as RAM and storage prices will drop. As technology improves, it can only get cheaper from here. And then, I will make my move and buy this case. Well, this is why my career is a dumpster fire. I have zero foresight and my ideas are wrong. Everything costs ridiculously more than what I already could not afford back then, including a pre-owned Sentry enclosure. So I ask myself, if the essence of a PC case is to be built and used, but I never really got to own it, all I really know of it are pixels and beeps on my cell phone, does it even exist? No, it doesn't exist. And the cake is a lie. Or is it? This is Project Diorite. It is the love child of my dream and my reality. My dream of a Sentry-like enclosure and my reality of what I can only afford. Beyond this, Diorite is the proof that the cake does exist. It doesn't exist like the screen you're watching this video on, but it exists like capitalism and democracy. Superior to any tangible object, it exists as an idea that inspired me to create what I could not have. So I spent the better part of last year conceptualizing and developing Project Diorite, figuring out exactly what I wanted out of it and how I wanted to make it. For starters, it needed to be small and slim, just like the Sentry. Project Diorite has a length of 400mm and a height of 370mm and a slim width of 165mm, all for a final volume of approximately 24.5 liters. Here it is next to my beloved fractal design Meshify C. And here it is next to other popular enclosures. Size approximated. Project Diorite. It's the love child of my dream and my reality. Since this is my fourth project, it needs to be a significant step forward from my previous designs. it would be best we start with what annoyed me the most: rigidity. Aside from having 4 beams hold the front and rear panels together, they're supported further by a plug and socket connection. The bottom plate is supported by a rail mount to add strength to the adhesive holding it to the bottom beams and panels. Finally, I increased the layering of the left and right panels. Hopefully, this helps remove attention away from the breaks of the panel connection. Well, hopefully at least. We've talked about what this case is, so now let's move on to what it does. Word of advice, my friend. This is going to be quite a journey. Alright, the foundation of my PC build is a full-size ATX board, therefore completely unacceptable for the majority of small form factor builds. The reality of my situation, as I'm sure same for some of you as well, is that I just can't justify to myself buying an AM4 ITX board, spending more money for no additional performance. And if I want my money to fetch more performance, then I need to bump up to an AM5 ITX motherboard. Not to mention a new processor, and new RAM. Oh my goodness. I can buy a pre-owned graphics card with those RAM prices. When the candles cost more than the cake, how can one celebrate? Enter Diorite. This ultra-compact enclosure was designed specifically for people like me. It accommodates a full ATX motherboard, so no extra spending required. This enclosure can handle up to 2 120mm exhaust fans, but more on this later. It's meant to handle standard-sized power supply units, though I admit SFX power supply units have gone down to tolerable prices, but I'd still prefer to use the PSU I already own. Diorite can fit graphics cards up to 360mm long, 145mm wide. You can go wider, but you'll have to reduce the exhaust fan thickness. Another point to consider is where its additional power cables will be plugged in. You may have to remove one of the exhaust fans to avoid conflict. The GPU can be as thick as 4 PCIe slots. The graphics card is held in place by 2 working parts. First is my updated toolless lock. Instead of a static spacer, I'm using a spacer that can be squeezed to allow ease of installation while ensuring sufficient pressure on the rear I/O plate. And the second component is a GPU bottom support. It's completely adjustable to fit varying sizes of graphics cards. Note that for slimmer cards you wish to install closer to the side panel, you may have to cut this part to not interfere with the PCIe riser card. Now let's talk CPU cooling. The starting CPU cooler you can install is approximately 55mm in height, assuming you have a 4 PCIe slot thick GPU. 3 slot thick allows 75mm tall, 2 slot thick allows 95mm tall, 1 slot thick can have 115mm, and finally, no graphics card can fit a CPU cooler of 135mm in height. Let no space go to waste. Storage is a key consideration of this case as an apology to how atrocious last year's storage condition was. Diorite can hold up to 7 2.5-inch or 4 3.5-inch, or a combination of both. I can't imagine that most people would use this much storage unless for a server build, but hey, do what you want to do. Another important consideration for this case is cable management. Previously, I never bothered with this as you really can't see the inside, so I figured it doesn't matter. But it does matter. It's not about seeing you did a good job, it's about knowing you did a good job. So this enclosure has openings in the rear to accommodate Velcro straps. You can use it for both the rear I/O connections and the cable for the CPU power. While in the front, you have adjustable cable restraints to hold your 24-pin and all other cables. Just slide down and it's locked in place. Piece of cake. We've briefly discussed fan locations, but let's do a deep dive. Since we don't have much room for fans, Diorite has been designed to position the two hottest components next to the two 120mm exhaust fans for immediate heat extraction. But as I've mentioned earlier, the size and the position of the additional power for your graphics card will dictate how many fans you can install and where you may position them. Cover my bases, I'll be testing 3 configurations. Configuration 1 is that you install the exhaust fan closer to the rear of the enclosure. Configuration 2 is you install one exhaust fan as close as possible to the CPU, almost directly above it, while configuration 3 assumes we can install both fans for maximum exhaust. Let's stop the video here for a second. I'm sure some of you are wondering why not have a third fan installed in top front. I have to confess, the limitation is based on a personal aesthetic decision. I wanted a shorter case, so rather than increasing the overall length, I just sacrificed potentially installing a third fan in the front. Plus, given the location of the cables, I'm expecting some form of conflict between the front fan and the GPU additional power cables. Now that's out of the way, let's get into the test results. Kicking off our thermal testing, we'll be looking into Cinebench and comparing the results of all 3 configurations. With the fan at the rear, both the CPU and GPU hit an average temperature of 77 degrees Celsius. With the fan in the middle, the CPU reached 75 and the GPU 74 degrees. Moving the fan from the rear to the middle deducts 2 degrees and 3 degrees from the CPU and GPU respectively. We're seeing improvements, so we're off to a good start. Now, at 2 top exhaust fans, the CPU only reached 73 degrees and the GPU at 70 degrees Celsius. Another 2 and 4 degree reduction for the CPU and GPU respectively, should you install 2 fans instead of just 1. Next is the Eye of Sauron, producing the following results. At the rear fan configuration, the CPU hit 62 degrees while the GPU 79 degrees Celsius. Moving the fan directly above the CPU causes the CPU to cool down to 57 degrees and the GPU to retain its 79 degrees. At 2 exhaust fans, the CPU and GPU hit 56 and 76 degrees Celsius respectively. Moving the fan to the middle gives the CPU minus 5 degrees in average temperature, but no noticeable improvement to the GPU. At a 2-fan configuration, we see a further reduction in temperature by 1 and 3 degrees for the CPU and GPU respectively. Now let's move on to my favorite, gaming benchmarks. In Riftbreaker, a fan installed at the rear causes the CPU to reach 78 degrees while the GPU hits 72 degrees Celsius. With the fan at the middle, the CPU and GPU reaches 79 and 72 degrees respectively. No noticeable difference with these 2 configurations. Of course, at 2 exhaust fans, the CPU only reaches 73 degrees, while the GPU at only 68 degrees. Both the CPU and GPU temperature will drop by 4 degrees by having 2 exhaust fans instead of 1. In Hitman World of Assassination, with a fan at the rear, the CPU and GPU reached 81 and 80 degrees Celsius respectively. Having the fan installed in the middle has the CPU at 80 degrees and the GPU at 79 degrees. 1 degree improvement from both, so not much really. But if we install 2 fans, the CPU only reaches 78 degrees and the GPU is at 75 degrees Celsius. Maximizing the number of fans drops the CPU and GPU temperature by 2 and 4 degrees respectively. Getting crazy with Borderlands 3 means having a CPU temperature of 84 degrees and 78 degrees for the GPU when the fan is mounted at the rear. A mid-mount gets you 79 degrees and 78 degrees for the CPU and GPU respectively. The CPU heavily benefits from having the fan at the middle with a 5 degrees Celsius reduction, while the GPU sees no difference. Having two fans put the CPU at 73 degrees and the GPU at 76 degrees Celsius. Assetto Corsa's benchmark run hits the CPU with a temperature of 81 degrees and the GPU 79 degrees Celsius when the fan is at the rear. A mid-mounted fan fetches 76 degrees for the CPU and 79 degrees for the GPU. The CPU breathes more easily with a reduction of 5 degrees on a mid-mount. Installing two fans cools the CPU down to 73 degrees and the GPU to 75 degrees Celsius. And finally, my favorite, Cyberpunk 2077. Installing the fan at the rear brings the CPU up to 81 degrees and the GPU up to 78 degrees Celsius. Locating the fan at the middle gets us an 82 degree CPU and a 79 degree GPU. Not much improvement on either configuration. Now, having two fans brings the CPU down to 79 degrees and the GPU to 75 degrees Celsius. Before we dive into the results, a very small group of gamers might be wondering, why are there no Ubisoft games? They're pretty popular and you should at least include one of their titles, right? Okay, my Ubisoft account has been blocked due to too much login attempts. Important context, I only did one attempt to log in and immediately got slapped with this notification, which I filed a total of 4 unlock requests. They unlocked my account for the first 3 requests, and in all 3 times, the account was accessible for about a day before I would get locked out again. And on my 4th unlock request, they just flat out declined. So, I just gave up. Now, just to anticipate the small group of people on the opposite side thinking, who cares? Ubisoft has been publishing the same game over and over and over. Well, I care. A lot. Because I've seen things these people wouldn't believe. Attack drones on fire on the island of Aurora. I've watched nightlights glitter in the dark on the peaks of Yarrow. All those moments lost like tears in the rain. Wait, what did I just say? Sorry about that rangent. Now, how about we get back on topic? So what did I learn about Diorite? Neither one of us here is really going to contest that having 2 fans installed is better than 1 fan. And I'm confident that we all know that's not the point of the test. The point is, given how expensive things are, buying an extra fan is not as affordable as it used to sound. So, we try to answer the question, what is the optimal fan position for this case? Do we choose build comfort by having it at the rear, or a bit of inconvenience with GPU cable management by installing it in the middle? Will any of this mean anything? Answer, yes, it matters. For some games and applications where CPU performance matters, we see a reduction of 5 degrees Celsius when we have the fan installed right above the CPU's downdraft cooler. For GPU demanding titles like Hitman, Cyberpunk 2077, or even Riftbreaker, the improvement in temperature is negligible. A CPU-intensive load like Cinebench benefited from having the fan above the CPU. The temperature dropped by 3 degrees compared to installing the fan at the rear. What else? The advertised maximum peak operating temperature of my Ryzen 5600X is 95 degrees Celsius. At Borderlands 3, I had the highest operating average of all games tested at 84 degrees, which to me is a little warm during long hours of gaming sessions, but acceptable overall. All the more I can't recommend installing anything more powerful than a 6-core CPU with a TDP of 65 watts. How about a Ryzen 5700X, an 8-core CPU, still at 65 watt TDP? I don't know guys, maybe not, just to be on the safe side. The crux of this case is that it's designed like an SFX case. doing its best to mimic that form. Plenty of SFX builds run a little warm, so they design it with large perforations, typically without dust filters. I got greedy and designed the sides with only 2mm in perforation to act as a dust filter. I've thought it's got a larger surface area than a real SFX case, so I should be fine reducing the holes and spacing them apart. Nope, I think I can do better than this. So I'm providing a higher airflow version along with the regular version which I just tested. This version will instead have a 3mm perforation, increasing the opening by approximately 55%. Am I going to test the high airflow version? Nope, because this is where I plug in my call to action. If you would like to access all of my work, behind the scenes, project updates, please consider signing up to my Patreon. Link below. If not, and you just want to watch a video, that's fine. And hey, I'm grateful for the view. Maybe click subscribe and like so you won't miss my future video. Now that the technical boring stuff is over, I should ask myself the more important question. What did I really learn? In the story of Portal 1, the lie of a cake sets the protagonist onto a path of adventure and a daring escape, sort of. And in my sad little story, the lie of splurging the money I don't have has allowed me to design and build this enclosure. I guess just because a lie isn't true doesn't mean it can't build something real. Because this case feels awfully real to me. This is where the video on Diorite ends, but not her journey. I still have to figure out how to fit a darn liquid cooler inside to cater to our AIO-loving friends without drastically increasing its size. I also would like to integrate the 3D printed parts more, probably even use a self-tapping screw. Nothing is final yet, we'll see. There are so many things that need improvement, and so my friend, the work continues. My name is Sobiel. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I only make one project a year, and I hope you enjoyed what I prepared. If not, the comment section is just down there. And on that note, I'll see you guys next year. Yeah? Cheers, everyone.